Hello everyone, this is Mike and welcome to session 17 of our Cognos report training series. And in this session, we're going to talk about crosstabs and displaying performance data over a period of time for a dimension object. Okay, so let's do it. Let's go into our new report, select report, click on create. Don't forget you gotta connect to your data source. So under packages, let's select the internal volume daily performance, click open. And then let's grab a crosstab object, sorry, and then drop that in there. Navigate over to queries, grab your SQL dialog, change it to, let's call this SVM performance. Okay. I want to create a performance comparison of this month's and last month's data. I'm going to focus on IOPS. And we're going to look at the difference over a period of 60 days, but it'll be sorted monthly. All right, so let's do that. I'm going to connect to my pass-through syntax, and then let's connect to our performance database. Now, I already have this written, so it's easier for me to go through at least this piece, and then we will configure the Cognos piece. So first up, I want to make sure I create my select and my from. All right, and then I'm going to grab the components. So first things first, I want my internal volume daily performance fact table. All right, watch your spaces here. That's way too many. And then I'm going to give it an alias of IVDPF, which is, again, my best practice, which is the first letter of each component of the table name. All right, and then we're going to join our date dimension. And before I finish this, I want to just talk about what we're doing. Again, date dimension is the attribute specific table. It's like having internal volume or storage dimension or any other type of dimension is all attributes. Fact tables are values or metrics, and the fact table will contain the foreign key of the tables it supports. That's the dimension tables it supports. Going back to the schema, very important. We want to make sure we're familiar with that. And when we click on the internal volume daily performance fact, we see the foreign keys that are available to support dimension objects in our data warehouse. Okay, so there's quite a few here for this specific fact table. All right, there's a lot of stuff. I'm only interested in a couple here, and that's what we're going to focus on. So right now I have date dimension, and we have the foreign key date TK and the primary key TK, and then we're going to add the internal volume dimension. I need that because I want to derive something important from that. Okay, and I'll talk about it momentarily. So here, it's internal volume dimension. IVD is the alias. IVDPF is the fact table. Internal volume TK is the foreign key, and IVD TK is the primary key. All right, just a review. You've been through this a bunch of times, so we're getting a lot of repetitive information, but it's important. It's good to have. I want to make sure you get this cold so that you don't have to think about it anymore. Here is the storage dimension, and that's SD alias. IBDPF storage TK is the foreign key. SDTK is the primary key. And lastly, part of the from clause, I want a where clause that's going to constrain the data for 60 days. All right. Now, what I want to show is a month to month comparison. So that means I want the 1st of July and the 1st of August. That's it. Simple way to do that is to look for a flag inside of our schema that will allow us to put that into our SQL query. All right. So what you would do is go to the date dimension table and then look for flags. Flags are down here like rep, all the reps of flags. I want to use rep month. So rep month is the flag that will break down my result by the 1st of the month. So if I am constraining 60 days of data, I'm only going to get 2 columns of data based on rep month because it just gives me the 1st of July and the 1st of August based on today's date. And that's what I'm looking for. So up here, I'm going to type in the AND statement, and I'm going to type DD rep month equals 1, which is true. 0 is false. All right. And then lastly, I want to group. Now, there's a couple things I need to group by. Okay, the first is going to be the SDID. The second will be IVD, but again, I want to do this by SVM, so I'm going to wait to show you what we're going to put in here. First up, let's go get the two attributes I'm interested in, cluster and SVM. All right, you can't, when you display data, make sure you have enough information to tell the end user what they're looking at, right? So I want cluster and virtual storage. Now, how do I know that virtual storage, the name virtual storage, is part of IVD? Easy. Go to the schema, right? And this is why I use this, so you can see exactly where everything lives, and then you'll remember, you won't forget. And then go to the performance database, and then I'm looking for my internal volume dimension right here. Now, if I scroll down a little bit, you're going to see something called virtual storage. That's the SVM name. It used to be called a vFiler. So this is the SVM name. That's exactly how I want to aggregate this data and then show it in my crosstab. All right. So I want to make sure that virtual storage is my SVM field. And then I'm going to group by virtual storage. All right. Very important. And lastly, I'm going to group by full date. All right, now I got to grab another metric. Right in here, I'm going to place that in here, and it's called total IOPS. Of course, I just want to show the difference between total IOPS in July and August. So here I'm going to do a round. I'm going to get the max of average IOPS, and I'm going to get it from my fact table. It's called total IOPS, and then 0 decimal places rounded. The name is total IOPS, and then lastly, all I need to do is full date. Okay, and full date comes from the date dimension, of course. You can get that in the schema table, and just in case you forget where it is and what it does. All right, you can read the caption that's associated with it. So let's just call it date. All right, and that's basically all I need. Let's validate, make sure everything's good. Validation is successful. Let's click OK. Now let's go back to the crosstab. There's more work involved in the crosstab than there is the SQL query in this instance, but it's an important part of Cognos, and it does add a lot of value for our customers. So let's go over to our data items, and I want to drop cluster and SVM into, and look what I did. Now hold on. When I drop cluster into the leftmost column, and I take SVM, you got to get the parallel bar next to cluster, and that drops it in as well. So now you'll see it by cluster and SVM. Perfect. Now we got to get date. Put date up under columns. See where it says columns? Drop date right up there. All right. And then total IOPS, you're going to go up, get the horizontal bar underneath date, and drop it in. And that's going to give you the makings of the crosstab. Now, there's a lot of things missing here, I know. We don't have headers for cluster and SVM. We don't have the running difference. That we're going to do that in a second. First off, some housekeeping. I want to put a border around my crosstab. It just looks nicer. That's all it is. Just do a silver border, click OK, and then when you run this, it has a nice box around the crosstab. Another thing you might want to do is set the page width. Up here, I've done this before, but it's been a while. Click on page. And then down here in size and overflow, you can set the page width. Let's just set it to 1,000, because I don't think you're going to get a lot of data here until I increase the time period, which I will. All right. And 1,000 pixels wide is a good size. So let's do that. And the other thing I want to do is I want to make this 100%. That's the crosstab itself is going to be 100%. That way I take up the full width of the page. So 100%. Cool. Very good. And that's about 1,000 pixels right there. All right. Next up, we don't have any headers to cluster. When I run this, I'm just going to get, cluster name and SVMs. It's going to group it properly. It'll look nice, but you don't have headers. And customers, whoever's consuming it, need headers. So what you need to do, select the cluster column. Go over here and see this ellipse right here. Click on headers and footers, and just click on create header. Do the same thing for SVM. There is a little different behavior here, which is weird, but it's just the way Cognos works. Again, create header by selecting headers and footers. Now, SVM gets thrown down here below. All you got to do is just drag it up, get the parallel bar, and it drops the header in the appropriate place. Okay? Easy. Crazy Cognos stuff, but that's what it does. All right? Just remember this when you need to build a cross tab for your customers to show data over a period of time, or even if you're just showing data by columns. It's useful. It's a very good part of Cognos. Another thing is hold the control key, get both cluster and SVM. Change the background color to white. It's just a little bit better, easier on the eyes. At least in my opinion. You can do what you want. Customer might want something different. And then the other thing is, remember when we used the date in charts, we had to change the date from a member caption to a data item? Yeah, we got to do the same thing here. It's the behavior is very similar to charts. You go to data format, go down to date, scroll down the bottom, go to pattern, and it's MMDD YYYY. Oops, sorry, I'm on key. YYYY. And you can see that there's examples down here when you scroll down, right? So dates are pretty. I mean, you can look this up on the internet too if you ever if you want to do something a little bit different that's not outlined in the note down the bottom. You can find a lot of examples online if you want. So just use that pattern for now. All right, and then what I'm going to do is we need to get the running difference. So that is a Cognos function. It's very straightforward. Let's go to queries, go to SVM performance, drag a query calculation down, and click on other expression. And you're going to call this IOPS diff. All right, because it's going to actually be a field that's a part of the crosstab. Now, next up, we're going to get running difference. Now, if you want to look at where the functions are, you got summaries. And under summaries, these are all your running aggregation functions. Okay, there's a lot of good stuff in here. You know, these are statistical functions. You got operators, date objects, all kinds of good stuff. You got common functions. I'll get into this in future sessions, but one thing at a time. We're going to do a little bit here, a little bit there. But in our use case, I'm just going to select running difference. You can just pop that in there, and you want to do a running difference back on your date items on total IOPS. Put in a comma, because if you look at your string expression, it requires a comma. Actually, no, I'm sorry. This one doesn't, because we only have one field. So I'm sorry. Let me take that back. It's only one field. If I was trying to show the running difference of several metrics, then I would put a comma in there, and I don't need to do that. This is going to be done automatically in the crosstab. Okay, so my bad. I'm glad at least I called it out and you understand there is a space for a second string. We're not going to use it. Type in the word for, and then I want to grab the cluster, enter a comma, and then enter SVM. So this is how you create the running difference, because I'm going to have so many clusters, right? And a lot of VMs for each cluster. So I need to specify both. And the reason why we do that, because you may have the same SVM name on a different cluster. That'll mess up your calculation. So by including cluster and SVM in your running difference total, it'll work perfectly. If you don't include cluster, you could get a messed up number if there are duplicate names for different clusters for SVMs. That happens a lot, believe it or not. All right, so click OK, go back to your page, go over to your data items, take the IOPS different, go over here to the end of the first column, okay, the first series here. It gives you two. This would be too far, so you want to go right here, drop it in, and that gives you IOPS different. Now, the last thing you need to do here in order to make it work is to aggregate the data. It's just like a chart object. If you don't aggregate the data in Cognos, it's not going to show anything, and it'll take forever to run. So up here, I want to do a total of IOPS and a total. Actually, you know what? Let me do it the way it's set up in the query. So let's go to maximum, and then we'll do a maximum difference here. Okay, let's go to maximum. Awesome. All right, and then when we run the report, we'll get a result. Takes about 30 or 40 seconds to run, because processing performance data, especially for volumes, can take a little time. All right, so be patient with it, and then it should render in just a sec. Okay, so here you go. So here is your cluster. This is your SVM, of course. You got a number of SVMs for each cluster. Here's your total IOPS for July 1st. This is your total IOPS for August 1st. And this is the difference. Now, you won't get nothing here, because this is a starting month. You'll never get a difference on the starting month when you use running difference. All right, so in this example, and in anything you do in the future, running difference for the first period, the first date period, will always be blank. All right, and then when you look at your result, the next column is where the difference will be. Okay, so now lastly, I want to add the conditional styles. So let's go to the report editor, navigate to the page, select the IOPS different. Make sure you select the body and not the title. Go up to conditional styles, hit the plus. You're going to type in just type in red just for this demonstration. Go over to IOPS different, and anything greater than 0 is red. All right, anything less is green, and I'll explain that in a minute. So here, okay, anything greater than 0 is red. So we're going to go red. We're going to go bold. All right, cool. And then add another. This time it's going to be less than 0, and less than 0 will be green. Go to custom color. Get that nice green color. What is it? 33CC99. Yeah, that's a good green color. Go to bold. Click OK. Run the report. Give it a second run, and you will have your conditional style applied. There you go. So anything. Now, why did I use red for positives and green for negatives? Because when you're reducing the load in your system, it is not necessarily a bad thing. When the load is increasing, it can be an issue, right? The more IOPS that you're generating, depending on what your IOPS capability is, may generate latency. And another idea, you could add latency to this specific crosstab to see what the differences are between IOPS and latency, and call them out appropriately. When latency is going down, that's a good thing. So if it's negative, it's a negative difference, then that's a good thing. We want to make sure it's green. If it's going up, it's not a good thing. So that's my logic behind adding the colors and then showing the differences between the July 7th, first of the month, and then August, first of the month, and then you get your results for the customer. Now they can track this over time. As time goes on, every month they'll run this report and they'll get the differences, and it helps them monitor their performance. Now, another thing you can do, you can actually change the rows per page. They'll get more data on one page, and when you do, you can scroll through it and output it. There you go. Works beautifully. I like that much better. And then you can see some of the bigger numbers depending on how your lab or your production tenant is configured and how long data has been collected. That makes a difference too. So usually run this after at least 2 months worth of data, and you'll be off and running. You'll be in good shape. So that's it for this specific session. I'm hoping to see you in the next session. We have a lot more to cover, and I'm going to add more value over time with additional SQL queries and metrics and additional Cognos features and functions, which I think you'll enjoy. So see you in the next one. Have a good weekend.